Hello, welcome to my garden. As you can see, I'm right in front of my greenhouse. And I think, is this my 7th or 8th week? I'll have to look it up actually when I get inside. I've been making this series from the garden and talking about connections and creativity. It's a lot of what we do in my membership, my online membership called GEMS, Gathering Experiences That Are Meaningful. What I obviously what you can see in front of you, it's not the elephant in the room, it's the star of the show as far as I'm concerned. So a few episodes ago, I talked about my project with sweet peas. And I also showed sort of where we started, and we changed beds. Because when we initially did stuff, we put the beds in at the front. This I'm talking about for our little flower farm. But then they were too they were too far apart. Like they were too wide. It was cumbersome. So we changed it this year, which was a lot of work and a lot of moving of a lot of soil. And then built two narrower beds so that now I can pick on either side, and it's so much easier. And I was reminded this week actually of how one makes plans, or you could say goals. They could be plans in creativity, or in this case, in the garden. And it takes a while for them to come to fruition. That some things are running on their own time. And I guess I needed to be reminded of that this week. And that's certainly something that my garden has taught me. And so today, this is what I picked. Like, is that not incredible? Okay, now you might be asking, oh wait, there's one that's falling out. Well, actually, she's not falling out. She looks like this because I didn't tie up the sweet peas in time. So things were kind of on the ground and she was growing this way. And because some of the vines had come down and I hadn't pulled them up in time. So when I pulled them up, that was fine. But then she was growing upside down. But I always feel like this is not an arrangement. I just put these in as I was picking them. Oops, did I break that? I did. Darn. I'll have to put that in water just as soon as I'm finished with this. But you can see this one. I mean, like when I say I don't like a straight line, yeah, not kidding. But you know what's great about it is, doesn't it provide interest? I mean, yes, maybe I'm making myself feel better for not having tied them up in time, because as you can see, we live in a windy place. I also have a few other things. Last week I talked about Orlea. This is Orlea. Isn't she lovely? And really, really profuse. Not profuse, really, really productive, I meant to say. Super productive. I don't pick up a scent on there at all. But yeah, really productive. And then this one, which is just starting. Look at that stem. It's just perfect. And I just love this. It's a corn cockle, and this is the white, and I have blush coming in, but I don't have any blooms on it yet. And then my friend, remember when I was over last week picking ranunculus at my friend's place to buy some for the big event that I did? She had some little plants that she hadn't had time to plant. She said, oh, I don't really have a spot for these. If you do, like, why don't you tuck them in? So I tucked them in, and sure enough, they bloomed. And this status is, like, I actually like the lighter shade of yellow, for me anyway. But it will look fantastic. I can dry it, so I can just tie it up and hang it in a sort of darkish place, well ventilated, or anywhere really it works. But I mean, that's the optimal. So anyway, that was also in the flower bed out front this morning when I was getting these sweet peas. But I don't need to tell you, if you know sweet peas, the scent is just magnificent, really magnificent. I don't know another word for it. I'm going to put this in the water just so she's happy there for now. But yeah, really happy with how these have come out. They're nice long stems, little twist at the end, nice long stems. which one gets at the beginning of the season, actually. So I wanted to tell you about last week and my big event. And, I don't have Lily with me. She didn't want to come outside for some reason this afternoon. I don't know if she thought I was going to put her to work or what was going on. But anyway, she's decided to stay inside, so that's fine. I'm sure she'll bark and then she'll ask to come out again. But what was I going to say? Oh, well, the last week she was here sitting with us as she normally does, and I was talking about the event that I was doing, and how normally it's really just like Lily and I in the garden. Like we start these for this big event, we start these corms in the greenhouse behind me, and then they go into the hoop house to get planted later on. And I'm just going to be pulling them if I have time this afternoon. Pull them and then get something else in the bed because I've got stuff in the greenhouse waiting to go in. It's always kind of a thing. It's one of those fast moving restaurants. Like, are you done yet? And they want to take your plate before you're finished. Anyway, it's kind of like that in some places in the garden, just because there's not a lot of space. But anyway, and so I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that sense of time with her and the sense of the season and the sense of kind of going into somebody else's time, right? This is nature's time. We're working with that, there's no way to really speed it up. I mean, you can make the conditions better and so on, so that the plant will do what it's going to do. But other than that, it's really just sort of me seeing all of those stages. And then I had the experience after the two wonderful volunteer organizers had come with the truck to pick up all the 80 bouquets, and then the really big ones. I'll show you pictures of that too. Then they had a lot of volunteers this year helping, like students. And I used to do youth work, and I absolutely love teenagers and what they have to offer in the world, I think, is fantastic and often underlooked and underappreciated and misunderstood. But I absolutely love teenagers, and I've worked with teens for a long time, or I have done in the past. So I kind of miss that energy. I don't miss the responsibility of it because these flowers don't have to carry that same responsibility as working with children and youth. But I do miss that energy, and especially when people are used to being valued, right? So they realize they have something to say. And this lovely group of teenagers and somebody's dad were there, and a couple other people came along too. But what I was so struck by was they didn't know that I grew the flowers. They didn't know me I might as well have been another volunteer, because I kind of was at that point, because I was just there to help, take the paper off, get it into the vase, because we bring the water. Vase is there, and then I do all the prep work here. And so what I figured out now, if you're ever doing this, it seems like it's a bit of a waste of paper, because you want to get the paper up around the flowers themselves. Otherwise, the time is that they kind of hook into another thing, and then they've wrapped themselves here. Now you pull something off, and now you've got a lost bloom. And so, yeah, the paper this time it was a one-use thing, but I could have kept it and recycled it and used it here for bouquets if I'd wanted to. So that would be my recommendation if you're doing something like this, is just to wrap each bouquet. They're not arrangements. So arrangements is something more like you're taking a lot of time with each thing, and it has it's there in full. This is a bouquet, which is that you've put the flowers together. And I didn't even put rubber bands on them this year, because that was another thing last year that took a lot of time. So I didn't even do that. I just put them together, and then put the paper, I eventually just laid them out on 3 papers, because I don't have more room than that, once I got some more room, and then pulled it together, and with a bit of tape. So that was it. So there's no rubber bands, there's no tying ribbon, there's nothing. So it is super easy when you get to the venue that you just take off the paper and boom, right into the water. And then, the only thing is you have to let people know that, like, the reason they're filling the water, the reason that they know that it's enough is if the bottom of the stems are touching the water. They have to be in the water because they need to drink. So that's the only thing that you kind of need to mention to people. If and when you work with flowers all the time, you're thinking, well, yeah, that's obvious, but if you're not working with flowers all the time, you might think, well, why do I need so much water? So anyway, then we had a little conversation about that. But what was neat about it was, I was just getting onto the part that I thought was the most exciting, and really thrilling, actually, for me, I have to say. And maybe, I don't know if rewarding is the right word, but they didn't know that I had done the flowers. They didn't know who I was. And so I'm just taking stuff off and putting it in. And then when I needed to give a little bit of feedback about the amount of water, before I said anything, I said, oh, hi, I'm Lise-Lotte, and I grew these flowers and put them together. And they're like, oh, wow. And before I had said that, there were a few of the students that said, wow, these are so pretty. Look at this one. Look at this one. And they're opening each one. And like, they were really struck by how beautiful they were. And I love that, not because I grew them or put them together, but because there were students who are of an age they're growing up in an age where a lot of things are so removed from the natural world. And we're seeing that all over in all kinds of things, in taking away, a children's dictionary with words like acorn and like words that are about nature, about our earth, about things around us, the natural world. They're being taken out of the dictionary because there's not enough room. And other words are going in. Other words are fine about computers, and we're doing all of this with technology. But there was just something that was, I thought, so wonderful. And so they started asking me questions. Oh, what's this called? Oh, what's this? And I'm explaining how a ranunculus works, and I'm explaining how long it takes to grow and what the process is. And they were sincerely interested. And then what was kind of adorable, I thought, I didn't say anything, but I'm just telling you, I thought it was adorable. Somebody takes out his phone from his pocket, and he kind of very quietly goes like this and takes a picture, and then very quietly puts it back. And it was just adorable. And it was like, oh, somebody who appreciates the natural world and beauty, I guess maybe what it is, as much as I do, that he would want to take a picture and remember that. And they were asking, all kinds of questions about what things were and so on. And then I had that moment of somebody asked me what a particular leaf was, and I went, I know exactly. I planted it. I know exactly what it is. Could I come up with the term nine bark? No, I couldn't remember it. So I'm actually thinking that when I send a little note to the school, the woman who's the organizer will know which student it is, and maybe she can say, oh, by the way, the woman with the flowers, she said it's nine bark, in case you're wondering. So, because I don't like to leave, when somebody is good enough to ask a question, I don't like to leave it, unanswered. I take those things very seriously when somebody is, especially a younger person, who's going to ask a stranger, an older stranger, for a question, then I really feel like I want to deliver. But anyway, so that was my thrill about this event. And the second thing I would say, if you are doing something like this, I always bring like just a small bucket like this. This is that $2 one. Do you remember I bought these 3 $2 ones? One has a leak. This is not it, hopefully. But yeah, one of them has a little leak, so I'll have to just use that with the drieds. But anyway, so I just brought this size. It wasn't this one, but this size. And I had extra blooms. And I always do that because inevitably, because I'm keeping particularly the ranunculus in the fridge for like weeks on end. And yes, I've checked them and so on, but I try not to move them in and out a lot. I try and just kind of leave them be in there. But sometimes they're unhappy about the whole episode of moving into the vase down at a conference center, and they just basically fall off their stem. And so, having learned this, I just bring like some extra, not of those, but of everything. Just And then what I do is I go through the whole place once everything's been kind of, and then I kind of zhuzh it a bit, like, because sometimes people plunk them in, that's fine, but everything's kind of off to the side, and it's like, that looks weird. And so the flowers aren't their best. So I like to kind of just open them up, and then once they're in, because the vases that I'm given to work with are a cylinder, and so they don't naturally do that. You kind of have to just give them a chance to, have their own space a bit. And then sometimes I'll just be like, oh, there's not a lot in that somehow. Anyway, so plunk something else in, or if something, there was a mishap, then I can sort of add to it. So everything, I made 80 that are different. And I had my sort of basic thing that I was working with, so I could count in terms of, the greens, like the mint, the 9 bark, the 2 kinds of mint. I had lemon balm. I had a sort of peppermint one. I had not 80, but I had some of the chocolate mint, which I love. If you're ever looking to grow a mint for flowers, chocolate mint is a little bit different because the stem is a dark color, leaves are nice and dark, holds up really, really well in the vase, and for a long time. So that's something to add. And what I do is I don't put it in the ground. I have now 3 different containers with it in, just to contain it there. But and I'm doing that with some other mint as well, because once you plant mint, you will always have mint. And if you want that, fantastic, because it is great. And what I did was I picked it a few days ahead, and then what's called conditioning it. So I don't use any chemicals. I just use really clean water, and it cleans snips, and I'll clean the snips. Like, I'll actually clean them with like a cleaner, and just to make sure that I'm not transferring things around or whatever. But anyway, and then just cut it on an angle, the stem, and right into the water. And so by the time a few days later, when you get to arranging all of these bouquets, part of it is because they're literally, you can't do it all in one day, or I can't, maybe you can, but and also stems kind of, I want to say they behave differently in the vase after they've had a bit of time to condition. And that's true for all flowers. And that's why I do the picking, usually in the morning, sometimes later in the evening, but not in the middle of the day if you can avoid it, because things will sort of wilt. Things are just basically happier when it's cooler, and then they get right into clean, cool water. So that's that. But anyway, so yeah, so that's what I was I going to say something else? Oh yes, so then I had the extra. So I had the extra blooms, and then all of a sudden, because it was 80, like, and I counted, I triple, quadruple checked, like I had moved all these things into our living room so that they would be out of the wind, out of the, and everything, and so I could have some more room in my tiny little flower area, and so, I mean, I had really checked, so I did know that there were 80, but somehow at the very end, one of the volunteers kind of waves me over like it's an emergency, because it is an emergency, because all of a sudden there's an extra table with no bouquet on it. And so I just plunked all the extra ones that I had left from having walked around the room, put them in there, and boom. So obviously I won't charge them for that. That'll just be that. But at least the last table that was missed got some flowers on it, and they were good. So that was good. So no, it was a really, it was a really good experience. And I think that because this is my 3rd year, you do kind of streamline your energy and the process a little bit. So, whereas the first year I was just like panicked. I mean, I'd never done something so big on one day. And then we started getting these little bar fridges, and like, it was just like a little bit panicky. And I wasn't sure what to put in each, and I was making each as I went. No, that's enough to make you crazy. And which I was that year. And then last year I had this other bigger event which was way bigger, and it is the biggest event that I've ever done. And those were with arrangements, not bouquets. And so the time factor was huge, and also just the volume of what we were producing was huge. And not everything, as I mentioned in the last video, not everything came in, which is why when I bought this Orlea from that lovely woman, it was such a gift to be able to get that from another local grower. But when you've done something the third year, and then I started thinking, oh, I don't really feel panicked. Is there something I'm missing? I feel as though I should be panicking, but I wasn't. And so it was good. And then I was so lucky that, you know, a couple people had given me some beautiful flowers, and like my friend's mom who gave me the calla lilies, and we ended up having a fall in her garden, and it was such a lesson to me because she's 83 and I just turned 58 last week, and she was coming across a creek and there was rocks and stuff, and so she all of a sudden lost her balance, so I pulled her so she wasn't going to fall in this little creek, and before we knew it, we both lost our balance, and we're both lying parallel to the creek and kind of looked at each other like, oh. And luckily she got up and everything was fine, and she had some scrapes and stuff, but I did for another day and a bit feel a little bit not quite right. Like I've never fallen like that. Like, I mean, I fell as a kid all the time, and I can't skate to save my life, but I guess if I was better at falling, I would know how to do the skating. But anyway, I really don't remember when I've done that before, but it's hard on the body. And so it wasn't great timing for needing to be on my feet with this flower order. So I'm kind of glad that I sort of prepped a lot of the stuff ahead of time. And mostly I was glad that she was fine. It is fine. And then a flower friend of mine had given me that beautiful lady's mantle that I showed you last week, and I had the ranunculus from my friend that I could buy, so that was great. So it worked out really well. And the two stage arrangements that I made were really tall. They're probably, like, I'm sitting on a chair here, but I mean, they're probably, even with me sitting on the chair, they're probably this high, the glass. And it's about that wide of an opening, and it's nice and narrow and long. So it kind of shows things really well because it kind of does this at the top. And it's the third year that I've used these for the stage, so I kind of am familiar. I guess it's the fourth because I did another event last year for them as well. So the fourth, but it really gives you a lot of height and but it also means you got to have stuff that's tall, that's proportional in the space. And because I had to laugh because their colors are red and black, like those are their school colors. And so last year, my friend had given me some vegetables, and that, like, little seedling vegetables, and I had planted them, and then I kind of lost track. And then this year they started to go to seed, but they shot up. So in using these vases, I needed something. I realized that they're glass, so they're up on stage. You're going to see everything that goes down. So as I started to see these vegetables that were going to seed, they had the most beautiful red color because that's their color, and they were starting to really shoot up really tall and stuff. So that was great. So I thought, I'm going to tuck those in there. So I did that, and then I also used some beautiful anemones, which are grown like a ranuncula. And my friend has some in a beautiful, it's their red. Like, being a quilter, I'm always like, red is hard to match is what I'm saying. But it's the right red. And so I used a lot of those. And then for the last couple of years, I've been growing, because one of my very favorite scents that I didn't know I loved so much, and it's caught my eye because it's on the neighbor's side. But this neighbor that I'm sitting next to, for years, they've had, this is at the back of their property, They've had mock orange, and I love the scent of mock orange. In fact, I think I even wrote that on my book cover. There was a reference to it because I just love this, and I've grown some of my own because they'd gotten some people to come through and clean. I don't think they knew all the plants, so they just anyway. So we missed out for a few years on theirs. So I thought, oh, I better grow my own. So I've got some on this side too, but out front, I had some, and it took quite a long time to get some height on it. But this year, I felt like, oh, it's really tall enough. And so I cut those stems and put those in the larger arrangements. And what was great about them was there's an intense smell. So in that really big, kind of huge space, it's kind of bringing that nature in as well. And it's something that the students recognized in the flowers that were on the table. They were smelling all the ones that have a scent. Because the sweet peas, I didn't have as many sweet peas last week as this is the most that I've gotten this week. Anyway, so they're really starting to kick in. But I didn't have that many of those kind of things yet. But anyway, it's just another element to think about when you're kind of creating something in particularly like a conference center that is just so huge and kind of doesn't have a lot of natural presence. So it's another way to kind of bring that in without overpowering things and have everybody in the audience start sneezing, because it can be a little too much if it's so close. But figured up on the stage, the two bouquets would be fine. So yeah, and I put a few other things in from the garden that I was really happy to do. Some of the Japanese anemone, those not the flowers yet, but they're not in bloom yet. But the leaves are so big and beautiful, and they hold really nicely in the vase as well. So that was it, and yeah, so exciting. So I thought I'd just kind of let you know how things are going, and I'll be back next week. I'll be back to kind of let you know that I'm working on something else that's pretty fun, and a stretch for me in terms of lots to learn. So I'm excited about that, and there'll be more about that next time. But in the meantime, I hope that you have a wonderful week. I'm so appreciative that you let me know that these are the kinds of things that you're interested in, and that it is helpful in some way to see the flowers and to talk about things that are, I don't know, what would you say? I would almost say that they're simple, like simple things, but I think that there are many profound lessons in simple things. I think that with food, for example, like I think the closer to the natural thing, like, I mean, a tomato off the vine, like, what else is there? Like, it warm from the sun. I mean, it's just like the closer to sort of the original form of something. I think there's a distillation of, well, in that case, flavor, but of just what we can learn when we kind of look around in simple ways. And, the world is ever increasingly, unfortunately, dangerous and complicated, and for lots of reasons. And so I think being in the garden and being present to one's curiosity, to one's learning, to the mindfulness of being in the garden and doing something, in my case with flowers, but it could be anything. It could be you're on a park bench with your sketch pad and your pencil. It's just sort of tuning into, I think in this case, the natural world, and your own curiosity about things that are going on, and really the delight that these kinds of simple things bring others. I mean, that was such a gift last week to sort of see that and see, the work, because there's a lot of work that goes into producing this. But then to see how it was received was really unexpected to me, and quite lovely. So I appreciated the honesty of the young people who didn't know that I was there and who I was and that I had anything to do with the flowers, and and then their just genuine energy when they found out that I did, and that was lovely. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week, and I wish you peace on your path. I am so honored to make the flowers that you see behind you. There are 81 different bouquets, and on the stage there are also some pretty large bouquets, and it's for a wonderful school, Brentwood College School. And you know, I grow my flowers for people to share their kindness in the world. That's why I do that. And to be part of something where people are celebrating the end of their high school career and moving on to new adventures with families from all over who are coming to celebrate tonight with dinner, and you know, endings and beginnings, right? It's always a big thing. And so to be part of that, to start growing these flowers in January from corms, and then to come here today and for me to experience what it's like to have people appreciate the flowers. And the students who were here were so lovely. There were young women and young men taking pictures of the flowers, asking about them, asking about how they grew. And you know, usually it's just me and Lily, right, in the garden and in the greenhouse, and we start in January. So it's just been us for a long time, and then to see this today, it's just such a gift. So I wish everybody such a wonderful event tonight. And thank you to the organizers for all of their work. And as always, volunteers who show up are fabulous, fabulous people. And I got to meet some wonderful volunteers this morning. So such a wonderful opportunity, and I really appreciate it. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful time.